The human brain doesn't learn the way we think it does. And in understanding this, we can also understand why M. Night Shyamalan's movies have gotten suckier and suckier for the last 10 years.
I see dead people.
In 1999, a movie called The Sixth Sense came out. It was clearly written, clever, really scary, had one of the best twist endings ever. I remember watching it myself. I loved it. Everybody else did too, and it grossed $600 million. And it made M. Night Shyamalan a really big star really quickly. And he released more movies. They all did a lot of money. And then something weird happened. Shyamalan, who everybody loved and thought was incredibly good, started putting out movies that were weirdly bad. There was Lady in the Water, which didn't make any sense. The Happening, which had this.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep.
What? No.
And each one is known to have gotten progressively worse. And no one had a real explanation why, except to claim that he always sucked. But he didn't suck. He actually was and is really talented. So what really happened? Well, if you ask me, human instinct and the world had an unfortunate collision. You see, there's a thing called the Availability Heuristic, which is a fancy term, but it just describes the way we actually learn about the world. Despite all the things we tell each other and what we tell kids about how important it is to work hard to achieve your goals, our brains pay no attention to that and gather their real information about the world from what they actually see happening to themselves and others. Those available examples are what the brain consults when it tries to decide the course of our actions. And usually, and this is the key thing, those are the only things our brain consults. And this, by the way, is why you used to hate school. We were told a bunch of things that had no clear consequence or use to our brain, and our brain didn't want to pay attention to it, but that's another topic. The point is, when you see a very talented and hardworking filmmaker show up, you can look at their history, and there's usually a key element in that person's development, a personal experience that made their brain see a strong connection between their own personal effort and success, which is making them work harder and harder. In Shyamalan's case, he had actually been a director and screenwriter for years before The Sixth Sense was released, and he was frustrated with how he'd been treated. So what he did, according to his own interviews, was try to write the greatest script ever so that they'd have to give him control of the movie. And he did 10 drafts on it. It was The Sixth Sense, and he ended up with something so good that it made him a household name as a director.
I teared up in the kitchen when I was thinking that, because it wasn't just like having a big hit. That's just such a physical thing, having a big hit. But to have a movie that people are recommending and going to see over and over again, wow.
The period that followed this is the one where his brain was working from what it saw, which was that extreme amount of work let him make tons of money and be a star filmmaker, and he produced a string of 3 more really good movies. But then, the pattern got broken, and what did it was The Village. I liked The Village. I can tell it was a lot of work to write The Village, but almost everyone else hated it, and they trashed it purely because they didn't like the ending. And all that hard work that I can tell went into that movie, followed by that mass rejection, demolished the connection that his brain saw between effort and result. And it damaged his ego too, which is why in the next movie there was a critic who got killed. Anyway, from there, it's quite clear that Shyamalan's brain just went back to the default way that all of our brains tend to work, which is just surviving while expending the least amount of energy. The excitement that pushed him is gone. And what's more, this isn't a new thing. Shane Black wrote a string of amazing scripts in the 80s and 90s until he had a bad experience on The Long Kiss Goodnight, and he said himself that he lost the urge to work for a while and didn't know why. Before him, just ask Quentin Tarantino.
There's quite a few directors where, like, you can't believe the work that they did in the 70s is the work that they're doing now. You can't believe it's the same man.
Now, what do you think happened?
They do one film, and usually it's a film that they're very personal about, that they care a lot about, and one, not only does it not do well, it's not recognized. And then from that point on, and at least 5 directors that I can think of off the top of my head, whatever special personality that they have completely doesn't exist
Let me
anymore.
just test this with you. Coppola and Apocalypse Now.
No.
I think Charlie Rose is on the right track here, but he just didn't name the right movie. In Coppola's case, he lost his mojo after this huge Vegas film he made called One from the Heart that didn't take off. But the point is, overall, at any given time, it takes a special mix of talent and circumstances to make anyone outstanding at something. And that mix only lasts for a certain amount of time. But while it's there, we can study that mix and use it to learn about ourselves. And what's more, that quirk of the way the mind works, the availability heuristic, is a key part of the entire reason we follow stories in the first place. But that is a very important topic that I'm going to save for later. Thanks for watching.